So for the next half hour or so, we're going to look at what the Learning Lab is. So we'll talk about some of its functionality. I'll show you some examples of interactive learning experiences that people have created in the lab. We call those collections. And then after that, we'll talk about how to search and favorite resources and content that you find in the lab. And then we'll move into actually a hands-on getting you started making a collection. And so I'm trying to, in just a very short half hour, try to give you enough so that you can go off for the time in between until our next session, so that you can actually start to create your own learning activity. So let me pull up on the screen the home page of the Learning Lab. Was everyone able to register before class? Okay, so this is the home page of the lab that I'm showing you now, and you feel free to access it on your own. Also, I'll say, please feel free also to just call out questions you have as we go along, or put them in the chat. And if I miss any that are in the chat, someone please let me know that there's a question out there. Okay. So what is the lab? The Learning Lab is a digital platform that you can use to discover millions of resources from the Smithsonian. And when I talk about resources, I mean artwork, historical documents, photographs, videos, podcasts, learning resources, and much more. And registered users of the lab can aggregate this content. You can also pull in websites, other outside websites. So you're not bound to just Smithsonian content. You can upload your own resources, and you put all that together to create what we call collections. And that's for use in or outside of the classroom. Okay, I do see a question that came in. Thank you, Futa, for answering that. Yeah, so anyone can browse the lab. If you want to create a collection, then you have to register for an account to create it, but you don't need one just to explore it. So I'm going to move down this homepage here, and we've split it up into 4 sections: discover, create, share, and learn. Before you get to discover, this is just to point out, so once we were all sent home last March, we put together a distance learning resources page that was intended to help teachers. First, it started out with DC, and then we were getting requests nationally. So if you were to follow that link, you'd find all kinds of content. It's not necessarily in the lab, but a lot of it is, and it would give you ideas of how people are using museum resources in the classroom. And it's broken up by grade level, by content area. There are resources there for caregivers, for students themselves to access. We have a section for Spanish language resources. So that's a really rich link if you want to browse that at some point. Okay, so what do we mean by discover? So here is where you can discover all of the content that has been digitized at the Smithsonian. As I mentioned before, that's over 5 million objects. And then you as a user sitting down at your computer can somehow aggregate this and turn it into a lesson. Okay, and that's what we call a collection. It might not be a lesson. Some people I know just gather stuff. Like one of my colleagues has a collection called Cool Stuff that she thinks she might want to revisit at some time. She doesn't know how she wants to use it, but she just pulled it together and she's just thinking about it. So some people use it just as a notebook for ideas. So as you go down, there's all kinds of links here to help guide you as you get used to using the lab. We've added in content to help you browse individual resources by image, audio, video, all of that. You can browse model collections. And then the all-important getting started guide. So as you scroll down that front page, there are many, many opportunities to find that getting started guide, which will really be your friend when you start to create your own lesson. Okay, so the next thing is creating. So again, this is when you sit down and create your own lesson. So you'd put in your title and a description, and then you'd pull in your resources. And I'll show you examples of that in just a couple minutes. Sometimes you'll find a collection that someone else has created that you already love and that you would tweak maybe like for an older group of students, or maybe you want to pull in local content, but you like the overall idea of the collection. You can actually copy an existing collection and then tweak it. And you never lose the attribution back to the original person who created it. So that's a way, if you don't really have ideas of how you might want to use it and you see something else, that's always an option. You can upload your own resources. You can upload your own, sometimes you could upload maybe explanation of how this collection is to be used. Maybe it's for other teachers in the classroom and you'd say, this is how I recommend doing it. You can also pull in outside websites just through the link. You can also make it interactive with what we call annotation. And so that means you can add text, descriptive text. You can add quiz questions. You can make assignments for students. You can add in hotspots. So maybe you're looking at a mural, for example, and you want to say, what do you think this person's expression is? What's this image over here? You could actually highlight it and direct your students' attention to those areas. You could also ask students to put highlights on parts of something and explain, right? It's really, we're finding that really the lab is open to everyone's imagination, and we're learning more and more as we get new users how people can use this content, because it's really pretty wide open. I should say we're also really interested in your feedback. So this little question mark at the bottom here, please feel free to always communicate with us, because we've added in new interactive capability based on feedback from our users. Okay, once you've made a collection, you can decide whether or not you want to share it. If you share it, so you could publish it, which would mean that it's searchable online. If you don't want to publish it, you can simply copy the URL and then people can look at it. And that way it would be like an unpublished YouTube video. You can embed collections into your own learning platforms. And you can also make an assignment for your students. You would have to create a roster and then make an assignment. Okay, and then finally, as you go down to the bottom of the page, there are all kinds of resources that we have for you, like webinars. When you register, you would receive the Bright Ideas newsletter, which comes out once a month. We don't share your, we wouldn't share your email address or anything. We're a nonprofit, nothing like that. And then we have all kinds of other trainings available. So I'll mention that at the end, because you might want to take advantage of some of these offerings in the few weeks between our sessions. So Jill is saying she wonders if we can embed in Canvas, and I am not sure. I know that in our department we've been talking about Canvas, and so I don't know if we are yet successful at it, but I can show you where you would do that. There's a place where you copy the link to embed it, and I'll show you that. So actually, Jill, I'd really love to know if you're successful doing it. And if not, I'll go back with my department and figure out how close we are if it's not ready yet. So that's the home page. So I encourage you to explore that. What I'd like to do now is show you some examples of how other people are using. Oh, I forgot. This is the collection that I made with input from our whole team here for this session. Okay, so I just put that link in the chat. And what you see here, so this was created as a companion collection for this workshop. Okay, and you see there's a title, who it's created by. As you go down, you can put in a description. So I'm just going to click read more. These areas on the right, those, when you're creating a collection, these come up as boxes that you can tick off. And so these pieces are prompted. So you just simply respond and that's how it shows up. You would also put in your description of what the collection is, what it's about. And then I put in the hashtag ethnic studies, and I put in keywords TEEX. And so that's really important because from this workshop, from this series of workshops, we're asking everyone to put in the description hashtag ethnic studies, so that then when you search in the lab, you would find all the content that has been created through this project. And I'll show you that page in just a sec. And then I put in keyword TEEX because it would be great if your collection aligns with one of the TEEX, if you could put that in there, because then people could search. Anything that you put in this description section, if someone searches specifically for that in the lab, it will come up because it pulls from the metadata. Does that make sense? Okay. So what you see here, you can go through this at your leisure, but so here's that beautiful mural as our front image. You can add tiles of text. So here I put in our schedule for the day. I'm just going to go back to this window to show you the overall view. I've included here our introductory activity. So this is an example of what it looks like when you put in a URL from a different website. I happen to put in the website of the collection. So if I were to click here, it would open up to our introductory activity in a new window. Okay. I also added in a bunch of, so here's the first activity we did. There are also tiles from the Harvard's Project Zero thinking routines. So we did one of those routines today, See, Think, Wonder. And what's nice about this is, I'll just show you this. If you wanted to pull this tile into your collection, you would simply hit plus, and you would be prompted to add it to a collection. So here is create a collection. Each of these boxes is a collection I've already made. So I could say, I want to add it to that collection. So I would click on it and then I would just say add. So that's how easy it is to pull any content that you see in these collections. You can pull it into your own collection. Okay, so I'm back at the larger view. I've put in here other activities. So these are just set up activity 1, 2, 3. So you can please feel free to go through these. Let me show you what a museum resource looks like. So this is one that's pulled from the Smithsonian collection, okay? Up here, you see the paper clip and the number 2. That means I've added in 2 annotations, okay? So here I've added in text. So this is guiding people through. So these are my instructions. I've also put them in as questions here. So that's just to show you some of what you can do. If I were to click on the eye, the circled eye, that's where you go for more information about the object itself. So this is the content from the curatorial label. This is how it's pulled into the lab from anything that's already been digitized at the Smithsonian. Again, this box here is to add it to a collection. This is a really important one here, the heart. So you can favorite something. And I really recommend as you're going through the lab and searching for content that you favorite it, because it's much easier to find later. And I'll explain that in a sec. Here is a link if you wanted to get a link to this object. So here you could copy the link for this object. If you were to copy the code, Jill, you were asking about embedding it to Canvas. This is where you would copy the code. Okay, but this is just for the object.
I just attempted to embed it and JavaScript doesn't play well with Canvas, just so you know, but you can still link to the external site. So it's fine.
Yeah. Thank you for checking that. So yeah, you can always just direct people to it through the link. I guess that's the best we can do at this point, but just know that in our department, that's sort of top of our list is helping people, getting it more compatible across educational platforms. So the other tools that we have here is you can also, this is a citation tool, and it gives you the citation in MLA, APA, or Chicago. That we put in as a result of people's feedback from teachers that they wanted their students to be able to cite it. And then finally, you can also flag it. You can flag it as inappropriate or awesome, and we want to know. So the lab was really created for the main audience of K through 12. So if there's something there that's like not cool for little kids, let us know. We've run into some issues, like with it was a collection about porn and art, and it was really very well done, but it was for a college class. And so we had to go back and ask the student to just unpublish it, but the student could still share it with his or her teacher, just things like that we have to think about. Okay, so that gives you an idea. And then I'll show you later our assignment for while we're on break is here. So I'll get back to that in just a bit. I want to show you a couple of examples of how people are using the lab. This example comes from someone in last year's workshop with the Irving Art Museum. So she was a curriculum coordinator, and she uses the paintings of Carmen Lomas Garza, and she uses it to reflect on Latino life in 1980s America. So she pulls in, here's the work of art. She pulls in thinking routines. She talks about how to do image analysis. Here, these are the images from Smithsonian collections. And you can see every paper clip shows you that she annotated it in some way. She also pulled in outside websites. Here, a timeline of immigration. Let me put this in the chat so you can explore that. I think that I've put all of these examples in our main collection to accompany this workshop, but if I haven't, I'll do it right after we finish today. So that's one example. Here's another example. This is from, oops, sorry, I thought I was doing a different one. No, but this one is great. So this is from my colleague from Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access. So what she's using here is a document. This is a letter from Yasuo Kunyoshi to George Biddle. Yasuo Kunyoshi was interned during World War II. And so this is the letter. She put 4 annotations here. So one is text, where she transcribed the letter. She also transcribed it using highlights. So that's what a highlight looks like. And if you hover over it, all I'm doing is moving my cursor and it's hovering, and you can see there's the transcription. Okay. She also added in questions, and then she added in more text. Okay, and you can go through this too, you'll see. So she added in a writing activity. She pulled in outside websites. Okay, she even included a video. So if I were to click here, you could just play the video. Okay, so all of that is possible through the lab. Let me give you this collection too. Okay. All right, this one is an example of a class activity. So here, the instructor, what he did is he asked each of his students, this is for a freshman English course, he asked each of his students to upload one object. And that, so for example, El Sol y la Luna, this student, this is a personal object from her family. And then she wrote this description of it. And then the instructor pulled it all together. So it's like a class exhibition, right? So sort of a little bit like what we were doing with Chris, right? But turned into a collection. And then finally, did I give you the link for that one before I switched? No, okay, let me grab that.
Buta had a really good question, Philippa. If someone was to type in the answers to some of those questions, if they annotate it with questions, what happens to the answers? Or is that
Great question. So what happens is for that to work, you have to have created a roster. If not, nothing happens to it. But if you do create a roster, then you would be able to retrieve those answers.
neat?
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of cool, isn't it? I mean, some people find it more cumbersome to create the roster, and they just ask their students to answer those questions and send it in an email or, through whatever through Canvas, whatever platform you're using. So it's really your decision how you want to use it. So one other one I wanted to show you, and I really want to get on to showing you how to use the lab. So I'm just going to rip through this, but this is this is actually an assignment from a teacher to her students. So she wants them to look through these images, and it's all designed to help her students create their final project. But what's interesting here is that it's student facing, and then down below, it's actually educator facing too. So she uploaded instructions about how to use this collection for other people too. There is also a sorting tool. So for those of you who are interested in making a timeline or something, or when I was practicing on it, I did it from like the least cute to the most cute otter, but anything you upload, you can then ask students to move it around and put it into a timeline. Okay. Oh, and then I wanted to say, and then there are all kinds of activities there. So I actually included Futa's collection there because you can see he uploaded instructions. So then students or the teacher could, click on it and then do the activity from there. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to show you is from the search page. Actually, I'm going to demo this. So let me show you this here, the Smithsonian Sunburst. This is like the home button. So I'm going to click on that and it takes me back to the home page, right? But it also gives you other options. So if you're signed in, if you're registered with an account and you're signed in and you click that Sunburst, these are the options. So if you made any favorites, you could click on favorites. You can find your favorites. You can favorite objects. You can favorite objects in a collection. You can favorite collections, and you can also favorite authors. And then here's where I would access my collections, assignments and rosters. That's where you would get the responses from your students if you did create a roster. And then these are uploaded resources. So anytime you upload your own content, there it is. You can also create your profile. Okay, but I'm going to go back to the home page. And I want to show you how to search. So here, I'm going to put in hashtag ethnic studies. Oops. Okay, so what you see here is 0. So that means no one uploaded a resource with the hashtag ethnic studies. That actually makes perfect sense, right? Because that's not what the curators were doing. But I want to show you, if you toggle over here, 137. So each of these boxes takes you to a collection, to a learning activity that someone has created. Okay, so I'm going to put that link in there in the chat. So you can see what other people in these workshops have created. All of the content that we created for today is tagged that way. And you'll see content from the other museums that have been participating in this workshop. So there's really quite a lot there. Okay. Let's search for something else though, because I want to help you get started. I think I only have 5 minutes, so let me hurry. So let's say social justice. Okay, so look at this. Under social justice, there are 53 collections, 350 resources. So that means someone has put into the metadata for whatever is in there, they've put in social justice, and that's what's pulling here. Okay, 350 is a lot. And sometimes you'll put in something and you get thousands, right? So we have this mechanism over on the left so that you can refine your search. So I'm going to limit this now to images and video, okay? You can also, if you scroll down, you'll see other ways to define your search. You can pick museum that it's from. You can put in a date range. You can put in specific culture or place. Okay, so once you do that, then you click update search. So let's find out what happens to the 350 resources. There. So it's limited it down to 116, right? So that just gives you a sense of how you can refine your search. Let's say that this is the image I want to use, okay? Actually, we have 3 more minutes. Well, if any of you have an object that you think you already know you like, this is what I would say is add it to a collection. So you click on that box, and I'm going to create a new collection for today. Okay, you don't have to, you do have to name it, but you don't have to put your description. So I'm going to say create collection. And there it says it's added. Okay, if I were to click on that, it would have taken me straight to the collection, but I didn't want to click because I want you to know how to find it if you miss this few seconds that it's up there. So you have to go back to the sunburst. When in doubt, always go to the sunburst. Okay, so I clicked on the sunburst. I'm going back into my collections. And I'm going to go, so I am in some group collections. You won't see that yet. You'll just see published or unpublished. So I'm going to go into my unpublished, and there's my collection. Okay. Now let me show you quickly how to annotate it. And then the other thing I want to say, actually, let me tell you the other stuff, and then I'll go back in and annotate it because we have to close soon. Okay, so I'm going to go into edit collection, okay? So I just want to show you, if you were to add a resource, let's say, I'm just trying to get a link to show you this. Okay, so I'm adding a resource, right? I'm going to click on add a resource. Okay, Chris's collections. Right here, I want to contribute a URL. I'm copying it in, okay? If you were uploading your own resource, you would click upload file, and then you would be prompted to cite it correctly. But anyway, so here now I say add. It'll think just a little bit and then it'll be there. So that's how you would pull in an outside website. Okay, this picture will come in. It just takes a few seconds for it to upload fully. I want to go back and show you how to annotate. See, there are Chris's collections. This is how you would annotate, okay? I'm just going to quickly go through. Info. Okay. You can also add quiz questions. You can decide what type. Add question. What do you see, right? Okay, if you want to add more questions, you click there. And you can also add hotspots. Okay, so I'm going to say, look here, right? And I'm going to do it with boxes. We also have targets, which we highly recommend not using if you have images of people, you know, but it can show up well, like on a map or something. So I usually stick to boxes or highlights, and then you can choose the color schema. Okay, then what you do is you click on it. So there's my highlight, right? And then you can add in title, description. You can make it larger. You can move it around. Okay, so once you're done, you click done. In order to show you what I've done here, I'm going to save and exit. Why did something go wrong? Anyway, that doesn't usually happen. Okay, here we are. Look at that. You can see the 3 paper clips. So that's how I've added. So there's my text. There's my quiz question or question for discussion. And there's my highlight. And if you were to hover over it, you'd see that.